I think we're good. So, just so you know, the people are behind me. We're in a computer lab, and we're at Auburn High School, which is one of the, if not the largest high schools in Alabama. And
Nice.
we've been looking forward to this for a long time. So, for the people behind me, Mr. Aedan Peterson, he is a professional illustrator and artist, and he has tie-ins with the Wing Feather Saga, among other things, and currently lives in Nashville, Tennessee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Without further ado, we're just going to let you do your thing. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. Uh, so you guys are a design club, is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Nice. Um, so I am, like you said, I'm an illustrator. And background artist and concept artist, and kind of am doing all things just drawing and painting related right now. So I grew up in Nashville. I uh, I'll just, if it's okay, I'll just give an overview, or I don't
Yeah.
know what you guys are interested in hearing. So if you guys are more like interested in technical stuff, we can do that too. But I'll just kind of start from the beginning. Grew up in Nashville. I have always loved books and reading and movies and animated movies. Uh, that was just kind of like the culture that I was in. And when I was 8 years old, my dad commissioned a guy named Tom Bancroft, who's an ex-Disney animator. He designed Mushu and Mulan, and animated Mushu. He commissioned that guy to do a couple of character designs for him, like a long time ago. And I had been showing some interest in art and drawing and stuff, so he thought I would be interested by coming along to the meeting. And the meeting was at Macaroni Grill, which is, if you haven't been there, it's an Italian restaurant that has paper tablecloths that have crayons. So while you're waiting for your pasta, you can just doodle away. And so I don't really remember much about the meeting, except for the fact that while my dad and this guy Tom were talking, Tom just started drawing on the table. And at one point, he drew Mickey Mouse. And seeing like this character just come to life in front of my eyes blew my mind as an 8-year-old. I just like couldn't believe that you could just like whip that out of thin air. So from that point on, I just kind of like, I know what I want to do, and just drew all the time. And I read books, and it was kind of the age of like blogs, which I don't know if that's a thing at all now, but I loved finding illustrators that I liked on like Blogspot and just following them. And I would copy their work a lot, and just as practice, and just kept at it until when I graduated from high school. I was trying to figure out what to do for college, because I liked school a lot, but I'd heard that like art schools are iffy, or taking art classes at like a liberal arts school is not always like the best case scenario. But a school here in town called Lipscomb had just started an animation program, and the head of the program was Tom Bancroft, who was like the guy who kind of sparked it all like at the beginning. So I was like, it made sense to go and do that. So I went there for 4 years, and it was awesome. I learned a lot, and there's a really sweet, great community there. And then after that, I've like gotten to, it hasn't been that long since I've graduated. So all of this is relatively new for me, including getting to talk to you guys. It's very fun. So if you want to, I don't know if I can share the screen. Is that?
This is my first time using this software. We've done Zoom here. We've done WebEx. We keep switching programs, and so I don't know if you can or not, to be honest with you. I assume that it's possible. I don't know how to do it. So
I think that I can do it. Let's see. I might have to allow something to happen. If not, it's okay. But I have just some examples of things. So basically what my job looks like right now is, okay, let me see. One second, let me get this going so I can share stuff and then I'll keep talking. I'm not good at multitasking.
Same. So you take your time.
Right.
There's what's that? Where do you see that? Oh, okay. So they're telling me in my very top right next to the giant red leave button, there's a share button. They think that might do it if you have the same mechanics on your end.
Oh, wait. I think I might have gotten it.
Okay.
Let's see. Do you guys see this? Do you see anything?
Yes, we do. There we go.
Okay, sweet. So there are a couple of different roles that I play. So the thing that I always loved growing up was if you guys have ever seen an art of book. So when like a Pixar movie will release, so once Up came out, they will take all the development art, all the concepts, all the groundwork that was laid before the movie was like began animation, and they'll compile that into a book and release it. And that was the stuff that always geeked me out as a kid, getting to see all the art that goes into animated movies, because the joyful thing about animated movies, that is also the hard thing about them, is that you get to make every single detail of that world. Like trash cans have to be designed, spaceships have to be designed, like a leaf has to be designed. Every single element has to be designed, which is part of what makes it so appealing and wonderful to watch. But also, like, that's a special challenge, and it just takes a lot of time. And so there's usually it takes like 4 years to make an animated movie, typically, if it's like one of the like big budget movies. And at least one of those years is all dedicated to laying the groundwork of like, what does this world look like? What do the characters look like? What is the shape language? How do they move? What are the mechanics? Just all that has to be figured out. So one of my favorite things to do, specifically in the realm of art, is the character design. I think characters you can connect to easily. They're fun to do, to push shapes and stuff. You can do storytelling within them, with what they wear, how they act, what their pose is. And so that is part of what I do at Wingfeather. At Wingfeather, for those that you don't know, it's fantasy series, book series, and then it's also a show that just came out, the first 3 episodes. And part of what I do is design those characters, which I'll show later. But these are just examples of character designs that I've done for fun over the years. This is something like, this guy was a prompt for a character design challenge. And so looking for interesting ways to portray the character. This is a character that I did for school. The idea being a superhero named Streetlighter, who he harnesses electrical energy. So part of what you have to do is put constraints around your character designs as quickly as possible. Meaning, when you can do whatever you want in the realm of art, that's almost overwhelming. Anytime you sit down to like draw a blank piece of paper, it can be really intimidating, because when you have you can do everything, like, then it feels like you can do nothing, because it's just like too overwhelming. So part of what I like about character design is that really the goal is to tell a story, and stories put constraints on the characters. So if you say that he can only harness energy from like electrical light sources, if he was a teenager and like was just kind of making up his own like superhero costume, how would he do that? He would wear shoes that light up. He would tape like flashlights to his arm to help him like get energy, or like a big flashlight to his back. So you're kind of trying to ask questions about the character and then answer those through the design. This is another one I did for fun. The other kind of principle of character design and design in general is you want to provide contrast. Part of what makes designs interesting and funny or compelling is a contrast between shapes. In this case, it's a contrast between the size of the elephant and the skateboard. That's kind of the premise of telling like jokes, I think, too, is that you do something that doesn't quite make sense or is like slightly surprising. But you, in a sense, most of art is like relationship in general. Like you want to have a relationship with the audience. So like the whole time I'm drawing, I'm trying to portray it in the most clear way that can like serve the people viewing the character. So for Wing Feather, that's what I was thinking about. Like people are going to see these characters. How are they going to react to this? Are they going to be compelled by this character? Is this serving the story? So art is relationship in that form. So you want to figure out how it relates to the people looking at it, but it's also a relationship within itself. So like you make the ears big, you make the skateboard small, and like if I made the skateboard big, this image would not be as interesting. It wouldn't hold your attention very well. So you also have contrast between colors and value being like light and shadow. All of those things kind of like, if you balance them correctly, you can make an image that hopefully the audience won't want to look away from. Basically, you want to trap the audience's the eye. This is another one. Just sometimes with doing character design, you do this whole like spread that shows the character, shows some props. So the idea of like some punk sci-fi thing, if you had a multi-tool that had like these laser tools connected to it, trying to add details and character, adding scratches on the machine to make it feel like it's lived in. If you have watched any of the behind the scenes of movies like Star Wars or any Pixar movies or something like that, you'll see that you're focused on trying to make the world feel believable. Like everyone can accept that the world is a cartoon, but there are very specific things that make you accept that. And so you try to make everything feel lived in, feels like she actually is wearing these clothes, has actually written on this before. This is a design, some designs I did for a possible like video game idea. Just kind of like old 1930s monster mystery ghosts and stuff. So in this case, I tried to design the props with that, a story moment. And these are the kind of things that if you want to do character design, you will do a lot of these kind of like big spreads, trying to pitch a story, try to make it interesting for the people who are hiring you, to trying to show that you know how to tell a story and you know how to make characters that are compelling. This is another example of contrast in art. Contrast in design, having like a big body with tiny little feet is always funny, to me at least. You'll see that a lot in animated movies. And then the contrast between, this is a giant, scary warrior dude who you contrast that with like a beautiful bird. And what is that story telling? And who is he? Where is he going? It's making you ask questions that hopefully will intrigue the viewer. And then also, sometimes you just do things because they're cool, or you think they're cool, such as a samurai fox. I, in this case, just felt like doing it, so I did it. And then, so kind of moving on from there, you have those same ideas apply to illustrations too, as far as contrast. So light and dark, your eye is drawn to her because this is the brightest point next to the darkest point. You have an intriguing story. With illustration, a mentor of mine told me that it's always best to depict moments that aren't just an action, but either right after something happens or right before something happens. And so this is kind of a moment where you don't know if he's going to run. Are they going to be friends? You're held in this like tension of, this is a ghost lady that just came out of a flower bag, and he's a baker. Like, what is the story behind this? Trying to give atmosphere with it being kind of like moody and dark. Trying to lead the eye to where the audience looks where you want them to look in the illustration. And with all of these, I've heard a lot of people ask before, and I've also asked this question before of mentors and stuff, is like, where do you get inspiration? Time and time again, I've heard like artists that I really, really admire say, look at the world around you. Look at people just being in a coffee shop or on the street or whatever. A lot of times the most like mundane moments, like whether or not you're like commuting to work, commuting to school, moments where you're bored, those are moments where you can just watch, observe the world, look at things that might not strike you as beautiful at first, but might be beautiful if you look harder. And so a thing that is great practice for any character designer, illustrator, like artist who's doing representative art, is doing life drawings, which is just seeing people out in the world, waiting in the airport. These are drawings I did in church. This is a guy at the airport, and just do quick drawings. They're messy and they're chaotic, but it teaches you to observe poses and how people actually act, and they're little details that you wouldn't notice otherwise. And this is something that like we did all through college, and I try to do continually whenever I'm at a coffee shop or something like that, is practice the skill of observation. And that also applies to like landscape painting. My wife is an awesome artist too. She works on Wing Feather with me, and we both do books. And so when there are some nice days here in Nashville, we'll go to a park and both paint. And again, it's chaotic and messy, and you probably can't even tell what this is. This is a tree. But it's good to kind of get out and look at the world around you and take those details, and slowly you start to like build up this library in your head, like subconsciously, about how light falls, about how bounce light works, or how this certain detail matters. And that's a skill that it's just like good in general, is to be observant of the world and how it works, and something that I've found really helpful for me. But it's practical. It's great for draftsmanship and character design. So is everyone good? All right. I have some more things to show, but I don't want to just drone.
No, it's great. It's great.
Cool. So here are a couple. So right now, my life looks like a funny juggling act of doing freelance illustration and working full time at Wingfeather. So the thing about illustrating full time that I've found so far is that there's not really a norm as far as like 9 to 5 day job, because projects will typically last a couple months. So I'll get approached by somebody, hey, we want to do this picture book. Then we figure out a contract, then we sign the contract, and then we have a certain time period that I have to finish the book from start to finish. And in that time period, my workflow is, doing thumbnail sketches, which are tiny doodles, basically, that give the general idea of each composition of every page of the book. And then I deliver those, then do rough sketches. You basically slowly refine the story until you do the final paintings, and then you're done. But then you have to like make sure that there's a new project on the horizon, or else like you finish that and you don't have anything until something else comes along. So it takes it. I'm still trying to figure it out, honestly, but figuring out how to balance getting enough work, but also not overcommitting, because it's very easy to say yes to a bunch of projects whenever you don't have any, and then all of a sudden they stack up and you have to figure out how to make it all work.
So that's a good problem to have. How do you even get to the point where it is a problem that I might get too much work? There's a lot of really, really talented teenagers behind me, and they have the talent, but how do you get to the problem where I have enough requests that I might have the opportunity to say no? Do you self-promote a lot, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is a tricky thing that I am thankful that I think I have a unique experience in some ways, but not every way, in that I have had a sense that I've wanted to do this for as long as I can remember. And so I've gotten a lot of like experience under my belt before I even started college, because I had expressed interest to people, and then they would hire me. So I did a couple like projects early on. I was also just like really blessed to get connected to great mentors who would be offered a project, but then they were booked up, and then they could recommend me to people. And so I think what I would say is that there are so many good artists in the world, so many better artists than me. And I'm sure that a lot of you guys are on Instagram and see a lot of great art. And Instagram is wonderful in the sense that you get to be exposed to all these artists. You kind of have a standard that is set, and just enjoying the art that you get to see. But also it's this thing where it's easy to compare yourself to the entire world because you have the entire world to access, which is like a crushing thing. Like comparison in our day and age is like impossible to bear because there will always be somebody better than you. But what I've found, and this is kind of like a general principle, in growing up in Nashville, I'm surrounded by musicians. There are tons of great musicians, but it kind of comes down to, are you good to work with? Are you somebody who is kind and will be great at communication, be on top of it? Are you somebody that like people just like being around? And if it's between you and another person who's a similar skill level but is like a jerk, then you're going to get the job and not them. And so I've found that like so much of it, like you guys probably heard, like it's who you know, and that is kind of the fact in a lot of ways. But there's an old movie called Field of Dreams where he quote, I don't know if this is going to connect at all, but I think about it a lot with like career and art. It's like, if you put in the time and energy, if you build it, they will come, is like this mantra that's in the movie. If you build the baseball field, people are going to come see it. And if you build your skill level, and if you're kind and work hard, then eventually like you will get work. That might take a while. I've been thankful, like during college, I kept bracing myself for when I ended college. I was just very prepared to get another job, like kind of like daily work job, something not related to art at all, just to make things work, and just still continue to strive for art. But I've been fortunate to kind of out of the gate get people reaching out to me, which I'm very thankful for. But hopefully that answers that question. I think it's just being kind, being easy to work with, and once you get like one or two projects under your belt, then people can recommend you, can refer other people to you, and you have this final product that you can show like, hey, I can actually do this. I've done this one thing. So that's another thing I would say is personal projects are always a great thing to do in your free time. If you're waiting for work to come to you, make work for yourself. Try to make I don't know, like try to make a picture book. Try to make a movie. Try to make something that you can show as a product to somebody and show them like, I can bring this to a close from start to finish, because that will sell people. All that to say, does that answer that question?
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
So when I'm not doing picture book stuff, I've been working on Wing Feather for the past year. So here's an example of, at the beginning, when you're trying to figure out a character, you just kind of try a bunch of stuff. You have to do a lot of iterations. You have to draw lots of ideas. The art director and like the people in charge, they really love when they have options and say like, ooh, I like that thing about his face, but maybe we could put his face on his body and try a bunch of stuff. And then slowly you begin to hone in details about it. So here I was trying to, for those of you who don't know the Wing Feather story, basically this land is taken over by these Fangs of Dang, which are just these grotesque kind of orc-like monsters. And so I was thinking like, would they steal like forks and knives from people's houses and use that to put in like their shoulder pauldron thing to make armor, or trying to figure out poses here, trying to figure out different symbols that could be like painted on them or something to show their rank in their army. So these are all sketches that I would just show to the art director, and he's like, yeah, let's move in this direction or this direction. So then after that, after you get a finished design, so this guy, for example, I did several different passes on him and then finally finished this line drawing. And then it has to be modeled in the computer. So Wing Feather has a weird blend of CG animation, which is computer generated animation, and hand painted backgrounds. So what I have to do is, this character is a 2D character right now, but it has to be translated into a 3D, basically sculpted character. So in order to do that, I make these orthographic sheets, which have the final design, and then a side view and a front view. And then if it was like old school Disney, orthographics would have a 3/4 view, back view, all these different views, because 2D animation, somebody has to be able to turn this character in space all with the power of their mind. Just figure out how he would turn without even having a 3D version of it, which is mind-blowing. Like the old school 2D hand-drawn Disney animation, like those guys were like masters of being able to see a character in a 3D space and translate it that way. And then this is Slarb, his orthographic. I'm getting ahead. So a lot of character design is, I have drawn these characters so many times. It can be pretty redundant after a while, but it just takes version after version after version, which is a principle that applies to a lot of things in life. You just have to do it a lot, and you have to like try it a lot before like you land on a final version of it. I got to, in the same world of Wingfeather, there's a book called Creaturepedia, which is just a really, it was like one of the most fun projects that I've gotten to do, because it's just imagining all the different monsters that lived in this world. And so this is something I did once when I did a first edition when I was like 15. And then I got to do a newer edition like 2 years ago. And then for the show, I needed to figure out how to take these characters, these kind of like old school drawing characters, and put it into the style of the show. So I did yet another pass of a lot of these creatures. And so here is Abominable, something called a Saggy Hound, and then this is a Celbrel. And one of the main creatures in the books is a bumpy dig toad. So this is an example of, had to design the creature and paint it in color, and then had to design a little environment for it, and I had to figure out what a bumpy dig toad larva would look like, because it's specific to the script. And so I looked at like frog eggs and bug eggs and gross stuff. And then you have a finished character design. This design of Tink was done by somebody named Nicholas Cole. And so I just take that and put it in here with everything else to show the size relation of everything. But another crucial principle of doing character design or any kind of design work is gathering a lot of reference, kind of similar to doing life drawing. You want to make it feel like it's grounded in something that people are familiar with. And so so much of my job when I'm starting out is just going on Google or Pinterest or something like that and researching as much as I can whatever I'm supposed to be illustrating, and taking those design motifs and elements and kind of incorporating all of it. This is another creature from that world, Toothy Cow, which when I'm doing stuff like this is the moment where I feel like, what is my life? Why, like, what am I doing here? I'm just drawing a strange toothy cow. So and then
Hey, really quick. Sorry to interrupt you. I'll forget if I don't get it out now. So when my daughters were younger, we were reading the story together, and it was very much on our minds. We would read it any chance we got. So like when we're traveling in the van, we're reading it, aloud and things like that. So in our garage, there was a giant mosquito. I mean, a big old Alabama mosquito. And jokingly, I told my daughters, "Oh, I think that's a toothy mosquito," and they did not know it was a joke. And so for months, maybe years, she thought there's genuinely toothy mosquitoes. That is a thing. So okay, please
That's
resume.
great. Yeah, that's awesome. And then the last thing I have to show is just these are some illustrations I did for a book series that I've been working on called the Story of God series. But doing illustrations like this incorporate all of those things that I kind of talked about. You have to do character design and color design and know how to do values and light and shadow and tell a story. And so it's really fun to How do I stop the screen shares? My question now.
Oh goodness, that's a great question. Any ideas on that?
Let's see. We'll figure it out.
They just said hit the same button. That's all they're telling me. Hit the same button.
There we go. That worked. So is it still screen sharing or is it done?
No, you're back on. We're good.
And so like so much of it all comes down to like storytelling and like creating something that people are going to connect to, which is why I love illustration and character design, because it's so collaborative. Like you can't, I have to work with either the animation team and the story team or whatever author I'm working with. It is not solely about the images. The images are trying to inform the text, trying to inform the story, but not trying to just like repeat what the text says. With illustration, you want the illustration to balance or add new elements to what the text is saying and kind of give a new context to it without just blatantly repeating exactly what the text like describes. So that's kind of like a general overview of what I do. Hopefully that's helpful.
That's great. Do you have time for like a couple questions or?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. The Cates children have been so patient. Do you guys have any questions for him? I think you're on mute, just so you know, if you do have any, there we go.
Hello.
Hello. Hey guys.
They wanted to show you some pictures they drew. If you got just a second.
I would love that.
They've been looking at toothy cows for years.
Nice. Whoa.
That's
Awesome.
that's Luke's.
Nice.
All right, next.
So great.
Wait, where's the camera?
Oh my goodness. That's wonderful.
I didn't draw anything from the actual book, but I did draw this spider, and I would think that would probably be something that would be in the book. Like,
Oh, that's great.
you may mix it with like some animal or something sometimes.
Yeah. Those are great. I love it. Get up.
Chloe, you have any questions for him? This is my middle daughter that you're seeing in the other window. Any questions from the students also? We have a question back here. Can you come so you can see it, Sarah?
What?
Here.
No, I didn't do this. You did. I didn't force you. It was a joke. I swear. It was a joke.
Do you use or do you do any 3D modeling yourself? Like,
I have messed around with it. I've done some in Maya, just in classes and stuff. I did Maya and ZBrush, but what's that?
so no Blender?
I've not delved into Blender. All I can do is open stuff up in Blender and view it, and then admire it, depending on what is modeled. But I tend to get really frustrated with technology when it comes to 3D modeling, because I feel like it hinders what I want to do more than I always just think like, I can just draw this. Why am I trying to like fight the system? But sorry, I don't have any wisdom about Blender, other than I've heard it's great. But
Do you do all your drawing on paper?
I do as much as I can on paper. Most of what I do is with freelance work, with the speed that I have to do it. Typically, I do it mostly on Photoshop on my computer. I can't really spin the computer around, but I have like a setup here that has this big drawing tablet and then big computer, and I just work on that. But for projects like doing the Creaturepedia, I got to do all of that on paper, which is a blast for me. And usually when I'm figuring out ideas for things, I will start out on paper and then put it on the computer and finish it up that way.
What is your
Yeah.
favorite thing that you've drawn?
My favorite thing that I've drawn? It's a good question. I mean, honestly, the thing I have the most fun drawing is the stuff in Creaturepedia, or any kind of monster or troll or fantasy creature like that. I could do that all day, and sometimes I do.
Any more questions? You want to come up where you can see it?
I have one question.
Yeah.
So with constantly having to draw and like make character designs and everything, how do you deal with like art block?
That is a good question. Art block is not fun. And I think sometimes I feel like it happens every time I sit down to start drawing. I'm like, the thing I think every time I look at a blank page is like, how in the world does this work? I don't know how to draw. I don't know how to do any of this. But I've found that art block, I mean, this is a boring answer and not the funnest answer, but it's really just, you have to keep doing it. You just have to like keep drawing. And like, I have found that the moments where I felt art block the most are the moments that happen like right before there's some kind of breakthrough where something like clicks in my mind. So whenever I'm feeling like I'm dry inspirationally, I try to remind myself that like, you just have to keep doing it and keep practicing, and eventually you'll realize, oh, I don't have art block anymore. Because that's kind of like, that's also the answer. Like, how do you want to, or how do you become a professional artist? To a certain degree, you just have to keep trying to do it. And the people who stick with it the longest are the ones who make it. Because when I talk to some people about, or like what I do, they'll say like, oh, I can't draw. I couldn't draw anything when I was a kid. Like if you think about your skill levels as a kid, a lot of people are at the same level when they're younger, but you see a difference between people who just stick with it and like just keep drawing, and the people who just kind of like stopped drawing and gave up. So what I try to do whenever I'm feeling less creative is go back to the most basic thing I can. So I just get a 8.5 by 11 plain piece of paper and draw what I like to draw, like, and eventually like you'll get out of it. Hopefully that's helpful.
Any more? You've earned every stitch of your t-shirt. That's forthcoming, sir. It should be in soon. So thank you for that. Any more questions, Kate's gentlemen? We good? Well, thank you so much, Aedan. We really appreciate your time, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to talk to you guys.
So
Thank you.
just to go ahead and let you know, we will be requesting you in future years. You always have the right to decline, but you'll be invited back for future t-shirts, just so you know.
So thank you so much.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks. Have a good one. Someone just said love you. I don't know who it was or why, but just so you know, that was out there. All right. I'll see you, man.
See ya.